So, a long, long, long time ago, there was a man named Elijah. Now, Elijah was a prophet of God, which pretty much meant that God spoke to him and told him different messages to tell the people. Mostly along the lines of repent because you're doing what you're not supposed to be and I'm going to punish you. But there were some good ones in there, but that was pretty much the gist of most of the messages. So if you think anybody would know the voice of God and know who's listening to him and if he's being listened to, it would be Elijah. But there is actually a story in the Bible where he kind of seemed to almost have a hard time hearing what God was saying to him. Now, leading up to this story is Elijah, being a prophet of God, kind of found himself in almost a fairy tale situation. An evil queen had married the king of his kingdom, where Elijah lived, and had brought in with her false gods and encouraged the people to worship them and to sacrifice to them. And it's not a good thing because they weren't real gods. And Elijah arranged for this huge showdown between him as the prophet of God and these about 500 other prophets of this other false god to see who is the real God. And pretty much just to let the nation know, okay, it pretty much came down to one's going to be God and you're going to worship him, and the other one's not God, forget all about him. And God pretty much won the challenge. It's a really cool story. But he pretty much won, hands down. Elijah proved that his God was the real God and defeated the evil, wicked queen. Almost defeated the evil, wicked queen. She wasn't completely out of power, but she was incredibly mad that her prophets were defeated and her God was shown to be a false god. And she decided that she was going to get Elijah back. So she pretty much just told Elijah that I'm going to kill you. And it scared him so much that he ran away. Which I don't really blame him because a lot of Disney evil queens are very scary people, so you kind of can see why he would have ran away. But at the same time, he was supposed to be the prophet of God, and his God just proved that he was stronger than the evil queen's God. But he ran away. And God pretty much sent an angel down to speak to him, give him some food so he could survive the journey, and send him to a cave 40 days out in the desert. Said, you go out to this cave and I'll speak to you when you get out there. So Elijah travels out to the cave. And he's sitting in the cave and he's waiting to hear from God. And while he's sitting there, he's waiting, this wind comes in. And that's not just a wind, it's like a tornado comes through. I mean, there's so much wind you can't hear yourself. And it's just blowing everything all over the place. It's making all this noise and it's making a big mess. And the Bible is very clear because it says that God's voice was not in the wind. So Elijah's listening, and all he's hearing is wind, and so he just kind of keeps listening. Right after the wind, there comes an earthquake. So earthquakes are also very loud things, very turbulent things. I mean, the ground is literally shaking, and trees are falling over, and rocks are falling over, and there's a lot of rumbling, and there's a lot of noise, and there's a lot of stuff going on. But God's voice was not in the earthquake. So we just had these two big events come along, making a lot of noise and just shaking things up, but God's voice wasn't in that. And it gets better because one more thing. Fire. This huge firestorm comes through the area. So there's just like fire everywhere. And it's burning everything, it's destroying everything. And it's also very loud and very hot. But God's voice was not in the fire. And after the fire had passed, and after the earth had settled, and after the wind, there was this soft voice, pretty much a whisper, that came in. And he came up to Elijah, and he said pretty much, Elijah, what are you doing here? And that was God, at the very end of it all, the quiet little voice going, hey, what's up? And so then Elijah started talking with him. But the main thing I want to focus on is all this stuff that happened while he's waiting for that voice. You cry out to God and you ask God, why is this happening to me? Are you there? Do you know what's going on? Give me some kind of sign. Let me know that you're real. And you sit there and you wait, and then a windstorm comes through and an earthquake goes through, and then fire comes through. This huge out of control forest fire comes through, and there's all sorts of chaos and noise and confusion, and everything's just being turned upside down and being destroyed, and you're sitting there and you're wondering where the voice of God is. Let me tell you, he's not in those noises. He's in that quiet, soft whisper that you have to really quiet yourself and listen to hear. But he is there, and he's listening, he heard you, and he's speaking to you, and he just is sitting there very softly saying, hey, what's up?